But before that, I got a little ahead of my story. A guy named Fred Lloyd and before we were in that SEAL camp, we decided to go to a little English town there and go to a movie or get something to eat or whatever. And we goofed around, probably drinking beer, I don't know what. But anyway, we didn't find any place to sleep. I mean, no hotel, or it was just a small like town. They didn't have a Red Cross building or anything like that for troops. And the only thing we could do, we went to the park and was sleeping in sleep in the bandstand. And it was a little thing, about like the one at Nashville over here at the on the town square, they call it. Just an open building, but raised up off the floor and the roof over it and so forth. But we were going to sleep in there. It was warm, warm enough we could sleep anyway. Not good, but you could sleep. And long toward morning, I woke up. I could hear something thrashing, knocking around, and woke me up. And Fred Lloyd had taken his battle dress jacket off and spread it over his head and shoulders to try to keep warm. And some way in sleeping, he got his head started in the sleeve of that jacket, and he was trying to get out of it, and all the thrashing and knocking around woke me up, which the air raid didn't wake me up, so you can figure about how much noise he was making. But anyway, we survived that, and we went to church the next day. They had a church there in town, and we went there because at that time, if you go to one of the church services, after church there was certain to be some family asked you to come home for lunch with them. And that's what we was free meal. So we went to church and sat through the sermon and so forth. And some family, I can't remember anything about them at all, is World War I, English World War I veteran. His wife asked us to come to lunch, and we did. And I don't remember what we had or anything, but anyway, going to church that one morning, it served our purpose. We got a free meal out of it anyway. But then when, to get back to the SEAL camp, whenever it got real close to D-Day, I don't remember just how, maybe a week before, we left that camp and went in trucks, lorries they called them, to a port, and I don't remember what port we were in, there in England, and they were loading the ships for the invasion. And I think I mentioned him before, Clarence Peck, that was two numbers, his serial number was two numbers under mine, 118232, mine was 118234. And I saw him, he was carrying about a 10-foot metal ladder, aluminum ladder on his shoulder. I guess it was a scaling ladder to get over a seawall, I don't know what, but he was in the, he had been put in the Winnipeg Rifles, and they marched in front of us to get on the ship, and then a little bit after, we left and got on a ship and it had been an English ferry boat or tour boat or something. It wasn't a very big ship, and the name of it, there was a line, a steamship line in England called the Castle Line, and all the boats were named after a castle in England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, British Isles anyway. And ours ship was named, I think I'm right, Langleby Castle. And we marched on there. There wasn't, I don't know, I had been put in a replacement unit, was reinforcement serial B, whatever that meant. I have no idea, but that's what we were. One full platoon of us, 30 men and 4 sergeants. We didn't have an officer, we just had sergeants, 4 sergeants and 30 men. And we got on that boat, and there was no bunks in the boat. You had to sleep in a hammock. They had on the deck of the boat, they had bolted down steel posts so far apart that they could string a hammock between those posts, and that's what we slept in. That's the only time in my life that I ever slept in a hammock, and I hope I never had to sleep again, because it wasn't comfortable for me at all. A lot of guys could sleep real good in a hammock, but I couldn't. But, and that was June the 1st. For a long time after the war, I knew in my own mind that I had got on the boat on June the 1st, and my paybook said that I had got on June the 1st, but the official history, supposedly official history, said what a crowd there was to get ready to embark, getting the boats loaded on the 4th of June, because D-Day was really supposed to have been June the 5th. And they postponed it on account of a storm on the channel. But I knew that I had got on June the 1st because my paybook showed it. And then I read history in one of the books I've got here, and it said that some troops, not the ones that were scheduled to make the assault landing, but some of the backup troops, was on ships from June the 1st, which that was me. I didn't make the assault landing, I was to go in later and to replace troops that had been killed, wounded, or whatever. And but anyway, we were on that boat, and for 5 days we just milled around out in the channel, not very far out in the channel. I don't think we were really out of sight of land any time. But I know we were scared that the German Air Force had come over and plaster us, just to see all those boats and milling around out there, and they know something was going on. But water was pretty rough, but I never got sick then. But anyway, we were there until they said we were going in on June the 5th. And then, in fact, a lot of the boats had started across the channel, and they decided that the water was going to be too rough, a storm in the channel, and they'd have to postpone the landing another day. And they called the boats back. They had to turn around out in the channel and come back toward England again. And we just knew that the Germans would see us then, just out there and go out in the channel and then make a U-turn and go back, they'd know something was up. But anyway, on the night before D-Day, which was actually June the 5th, the day we were supposed to land, they had cleared us to go to land on June the 6th. And the night before D-Day, we were out in the channel, I don't know how far, it doesn't make any difference really, but everybody was, well, we knew we were going to hit France and going to be shot at, so everybody was pretty nervous and wondering about what tomorrow was going to bring. And they had a bagpiper there, a tall, red-headed Canadian. I don't remember what regiment he was in. There was on this ship, and in the platoon I was in, there was guys, there was maybe half a dozen of us, something, not over that was supposed to go to the Highland Light Infantry, and there was people from the Chaudière Regiment, the Queen's Own Rifles, the Winnipeg Rifles, and we was just mixed up bunch, platoon. And this bagpiper came out on deck and started playing the bagpipe, and he played almost all night. And just marched back and forth on the deck there, and there was some old English merchant seaman there. Different guys would ask for different tunes to be played, and this young guy, I mentioned him being red-headed, actually he reminded me a whole lot of Woody Woodpecker. I mean, he just had that look about him. But they'd asked for special tunes, and he knew every tune, Scottish bagpipe tune that had ever been written, I suppose. But this old British seaman, he was a little short guy, and probably, I'd say at least 55 years old, and maybe 65. I don't know. He was old to be a seaman. He walked up to him and asked him if he happened to know, and I think I'm right, I'm not even positive of this, Lord Randall's Retreat. And there's a lot of Scottish bagpipe pieces that they call retreats, and there's some laments and different things, which a lot of them I've forgotten now. But this piper said, sure, he knew Lord Randall's Retreat. So he started playing it, and this old seaman sat down on a hatch cover there. It was raised up so high off the deck, and I never saw as many tears come out of one man in my life as they did him. But that tune meant something to him. I have no idea what. But he just sat there and cried the whole time. And this piper, a bagpipe, pipe that you blow into the bag under your arm, will collect saliva. And after they play so long, there's a thing, I don't know, I'm sure it's not a zipper, I don't know what kind of a thing it is, but you can open up that bagpipe, or open up the bag, and let the saliva out of it. And there were some times that I know there was, when he would open it up, there'd be at least a cup of saliva that he had blown in that bag, which is a leather bag covered with Scottish tartan cloth, and he'd dump it out and then start right back in playing. And I think probably that guy playing the bagpipes kept a lot of us from going nuts that night, just from thinking. It kept our mind off of what was going to happen. But sometime, I don't know, I'm sure it was after midnight, he quit playing and we went to our hammocks to try to sleep. And the next morning, when I don't remember exactly what time it was, that they opened up gunfire against the coast. The people that were going, actual assault troops, went in first and we stayed back, and there was, the noise was unbelievable. There's just no way to describe how much noise there was, and I think, definitely think, that every man who was on the beach on D-Day can remember that noise. You couldn't, there was everything from 30 caliber machine guns through rockets and small guns up to 16-inch naval guns, all firing at the same time, and there was so much noise that you couldn't pick out any one gun. Even the 16-inch guns, I couldn't pick out when one of them fired. It was just all sound. There was just, it was just inside your head. There was no way that you could tell what was going on, and the rockets are whooshing overhead. And the first thing that about, there was tanks. We were behind then, but they had some tanks that had, they called them skirts on them. They were canvas, and around the tank they were all waterproofed. And these skirts raised on with a metal frame, I suppose with, I don't know whether they were electric or compressed air. I don't know now. But anyway, Sherman tank could float. And there's no way that a tank can float, but the skirts on the side of them were high enough that the tank and the skirts displaced enough water till they could float. And they were called duplex drive trains, or tanks. They had two propellers on the back end, by each side of the tracks on the back, and that's what moved them through the water in the ocean. The tracks didn't rotate, just those tanks, or those propellers pushed them. And there was a lot of them got holes in them and sunk because they put them out. The British and Canadians didn't unload them that far, but the Americans lost an awful lot of them because they unloaded them about 7 miles out, and there was no way that they could, all of them could stand that. They lost probably half of them, or more than half. But we lost a lot of them. But along, whenever the actual attack on the beach was about first light, or when it got light enough to see good, 5:30, 6 o'clock, probably 6 o'clock, maybe even later, I don't remember now, and didn't have any watch anyway. But the first thing we knew what was going on really was wounded coming back to the ship to go back to England. They didn't have any hospital, they just have a clearing station. They didn't have a hospital or anything on shore that early, and anybody that was wounded, if he was survived long enough, they brought him back to a ship and took him back to England. And our boat took some wounded and I don't remember how long when the wounded first started coming back, but finally there was sometime before noon. I don't remember just exactly what time it was. Like I say, I had no watch. I didn't know. But there was a landing craft come alongside of the boat, and we were told to get on board that landing craft. Well, the water was still rough enough that the landing craft was going up and down 4 feet from the what the boat was, and we went down over a cargo net, which is just a great big fish landing net. Really, it's woven out of ropes, and it'll be probably 4 inches in diameter rope, all woven there, and maybe a foot square, a little over a foot square opening, and they were hung over the side of the boat, and we had to climb down them to get into the landing craft. And it had, as I say, it was going up and down, and you had to be careful when you got down close to it that you didn't turn loose of the the cargo net. You didn't turn loose of it when the boat was down, and you didn't hang on till the boat come up, because it had just slapped you in the legs, and well, there was people got hurt because it hit them, and you just had to be careful and time yourself to get on the boat. And the landing craft had, to the front end of the boat, landing craft, was the door let down. The whole front end was just a big door on hinges and chains that would let down. And to the left of the door, above waterline, was a hole that I expect you could have ridden a four-wheeler through the hole, but it, like I say, it was above waterline. It didn't let in water except the occasional wave would slap in there. And everybody was issued a little heavy paper bag, a vomit bag. It'd be, the official designation was bags, vomit, troops for the use of. And why they would describe that, I don't know, but anyway, and I never got sick. I guess maybe I was too scared, I don't know, but anyway, I never got sick. But most of the guys, the vomit bags didn't, they were, I suppose they would have held a quart, maybe a little, they were waxed paper till they were kind of waterproof. Well, they didn't. They were soon filled up and thrown over, and then they were thrown up on the floor of the deck of the boat. And it was, it had high sides on it, maybe 7 or 8 feet high, but on the bottom of it was nothing. There was nothing down there. It was, I can't remember whether it was a landing craft tank or a landing craft infantry, but anyway, there was nothing down there. It was just made to haul troops or trucks or tanks or whatever. And the guy that was steering it was in the back end, and he was up on top of the sides, like there was a compartment on the back. I don't know how big it was, but it had the motor and all the controls, and the guy that steered it was up on that. I mean, he was out in the open. There wasn't nothing to protect him whatsoever. But he steered the boat in, and we all, of course, everybody got out of the way and got away from that hole in the front end of it, which didn't help a whole lot anyway, but made you feel better to get away from that. And when we got close to the, I don't know, we were not knowing, I'll just say we were 100 yards from the water's edge when the boat stopped, couldn't go any farther. I guess it was dragging bottom or something, and the door came down. It didn't come down all the way to the sand, but it come down, and we went out the front of the boat over that ramp and into water, shirt pocket deep on me. And there was a little guy. He was one of the members of the Highland Light Infantry. His name was Parkinson, and he was a little bit of a short guy. And whenever he went off of the boat, he was unlucky enough to step where a shell had hit, and the water was deeper. As I said, it was shirt pocket deep on me, and he went completely under. He just went down like a rock. But he come back up and made it to shore all right. But we waded in, I'm going to say 100 yards. I don't know. It might have been farther than that, and it might not have been that far. Who knows? And under the conditions, how far it was. And whenever we got on land, I remember on the shore, to our right, about less than a quarter of a mile, was a house, and any pictures you see of the Juneau beachhead, that building, it was about a 3-story house in a very distinct shape, and hadn't been bombed or shelled and ruined, and every picture shows that building. I've got books here, a dozen of them probably, that shows that house. And it was about like I say, not a quarter of a mile to our right. And the first thing when we got on shore, they formed us up in parade ground square, platoon formation, so they could check and see that everybody was there, who was missing. And I thought how stupid that was to get us all in a compact bunch there, standing in 3 ranks on an enemy shore. One shell would have wiped out every one of us. And the Germans at that time, there weren't any, this was about noon or around noon time, and there wasn't any machine gun or rifle fire where we were, but there were still shells, German shells landing on the beach. There wasn't any landed close to us, thankfully, but there was just trucks and tanks and jeeps and everything else. There was a traffic jam right there on the beach. There's just so much equipment. There's no way to describe how much equipment. I have read that the landing, all the beaches, 5 of them, Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, and Sword, there was over 5,000 ships in the transporting troops and equipment. And there's no way you can describe the congestion there was on the beach.